시청자 여러분 안녕하십니까? 좋은 만남의 김영기입니다. 한국이 낳은 세계적인 예술가 백남준 선생의 뜻을 기리기 위한 미디어 아트의 메카 백남준 아트센터의 개관식이 얼마 전에 열렸는데요. 공공미술기관으로서는 국내 최초로 외국인 학예연구실장을 영입하게 되었습니다. 오늘 좋은 만남의 주인공은 토비아스 버거 백남준 아트센터 학예연구실장을 만나보도록 하겠습니다. How do you do, Mr. Burger?
안녕하세요.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to see you.
시간 내주셔서 감사합니다.
Yeah, welcome to the art center.
우선 이렇게 백남준 아트센터 학예연구실장으로다 취임하신 것을 축하드립니다. 네. 우리 한국 국내에서는 최초로 외국인 큐레이터를 이렇게 초빙하게 됐거든요. 감회가 어떠신지 질문드리고 싶습니다.
Yes, I was working in Hong Kong before I came here for 3.5 years. And there I had a lot of experience in Asian art, but as well I also did a little job at the Busan Biennial 2 years ago with Manu Park. And I think Yong Chul Lee saw what I did there and liked what I did there, and he contacted me, and only then he found out that I'm also a specialist in fluxus and Nam June Pike. And so it all fit together. They were looking for a European curator that worked in Asia, but they were also looking certainly for somebody who knows Pike and fluxus and the time very well. And so it just made sense for me to come here and help in the installation of this great center.
네, 한국과의 인연이 2006년 부산 비엔날레에서부터 시작을 했군요. 거기서 우리 백남준 아트센터 관장님하고의 특별한 인연을 가진 게 계기가 됐군요. 전에 알기로다가는 백남준 선생하고 어렸을 적에 특별한 인연이 있었다라고 들었습니다. 어떤 인연이 있었는지 궁금합니다.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to meet Namjoon when I was a teenager because he came to Wiesbaden. And in this time, it was in the beginning of the 80s, he already was a very, very famous artist. He was very respected in Germany, and he also had a professorship in Düsseldorf. And I mean, he started basically in Germany. He had his first exhibition in Germany, he had his first performances in Germany, he had very big collectors in Germany. So he was, he was a very well-known artist, but certainly when he came to our house, he was just another artist, and we knew it as a special artist, but and he made a big impression on you because he was very different. You know, on the one side, he always looked a little bit like a street bum, but then it was this very charismatic and very educated and smart artist. So it was an event, kind of, when we met him or when he came to our house. And he came a few times because he actually moved into the same town where I grew up. So he kind of lived with us for a while because even in the 80s he didn't have a lot of money. And he was the Namjoon Pike. Yes.
어린 시절에 예술계 거장을 만났다라는 거, 성격적인 변화도 꾀할 수 있고 상당히 좋은 기회를 가졌다라고 생각을 해요. 우리 미스터 버거의 어린 시절의 성격은 어땠는지, 좋아하는 취미라든가 좀 파고들었었던 과목이라든가 좀 말씀 좀 주세요.
So yeah, I was lucky enough to grow up in a collector's household. That means my parents both collected art, and we permanently had artist guests in the house, as I said, among others, Namjoon Pike. But we had a very big house, very close to the woods, so we basically played most of the times in the woods or in the greens. Wiesbaden, where I grew up, is a very bourgeois town. It is an old spa, and most of the houses are old Art Nouveau villas out of the 20s. So it's it's quite, on the one side, quite luxurious, but also, as most of these German towns, a bit boring after a while. So that's So we had a childhood somewhere between a big house and a forest in front of the door. So probably quite luxurious.
아하. 비스바덴의 환경, 그리고 거기에 백남준이라는 거장이 오셨고, 또 많은 미술가들이 왔었고, 아버지가 관여했었던 그런 예술인들 등등 해서 지금 큐레이터로서의 그런 미래의 꿈을 가졌는지, 어떠한 동기가 있어서 지금의 자리를 갖게 됐는지 궁금하네요.
Yeah, after school and civil service, which you can do in Germany instead of military service, I wanted to study, and I did study art history and economics. And my parents were actually very much against that. They wanted me to do something more serious, but I thought and liked the idea of studying art history. But I didn't really wanted to, or there was no aim to become a curator. But while studying, it was pretty obvious that I was interested in organizing exhibitions and being around contemporary artists and art. So after my university and my MA in art history, I did a postgraduate course in curating in Amsterdam at the Apple. And then I worked 3 years with René Bloch, who is a very important curator. And we were running a big Kunsthalle in Germany together. That was very influential, and after that I managed or curated a big biennial in Lithuania. So just somehow one step led to another, but I think when I was young, or even when I was studying, I didn't really plan to become a curator, but now I think it's the best job in the world, so I cannot imagine doing anything else.
21세기에 맞는 새로운 영역을 개척하는 선구자가 될 거라고 믿어 의심치 않습니다. 우리 백남준 선생께서 독일에서 유학을 했고, 거기서 첫 번째 개인전을 연 그러한 기록을 제가 봤습니다. 우리 미스터 버거께서 독일 출신이시고, 독일에서의 우리 백남준 선생에 대한 평가, 어떤 평가가 있는지 좀 궁금하거든요. 좀 말씀 좀 주시죠.
Yeah, Namjoon came to Germany in the end of the 50s, and you have to realize that was only 10 years after the war was over, so actually very early. And in this time, Germany had a very interesting art scene because it recovered from the war on the one side, but certainly it had all these very important philosophers, musicians, and so on. So Pike came into an environment which was very supportive of the ideas he had and influenced him a lot. Like also he met John Cage in Germany, he met Stockhausen there, so he met Schoenberg. All these people that became important for him, he met in Germany. And also the art he was interested, which was not an art which made objects or which made paintings actually on the wall, but which in that time he made performances and televisions, was also an art Germany was very interested. It was very new, it was very avant-garde, and it was also very critical and somehow quite political. And so Pike actually had also not only his first exhibition in Germany, but for a long time only Germany gave him actually the place where he could act, where he could exhibit, and where he was appreciated and collected. And certainly he later moved to New York, which was a much more important place for art. In the 60s, New York was the place you had to be in art. And but for example, it took till 1986 until Namjoon Pike had an exhibition in his home country, Korea, which is 30 years after his first German exhibition. So Germany always appreciated Pike and always appreciated him not only because he was some exotic artist, but they appreciated it because he was a very interesting guy, he was a very prolific artist and a very good writer and a good talker and intellectual. So he was very much part of the German and Western art scene in the 1960s and 70s.
얼마 안 된 것 같은데 지금 여기 들어보니까 자료들이 참 많습니다. 이 백남준 미술관이, 백남준 아트센터가 어떤 곳인지 소개 좀 주세요.
Yeah, as you know, the art center was opened just last week on the 8th of November, and Yeah, it was 7 years we planned that center. When we started to plan it, Namjoon Paik was still alive. So he wanted the center like that. He wanted a house where Namjoon lives on. And that is why we kind of built kind of rooms into the center and made it quite cozy and made it quite engaging to the people. It's not a normal museum. It's much more active, it's much more engaging, and it's also much more cozy, more interesting. And that's probably the big difference between the art center and a museum. But here we are standing in the middle of the kind of historic section where you really have the first performances of Namjoon and Fluxus artists. But we also have a lot of contemporary art. We have a lot of different art forms. We have performance, and we have music. We even have gardening or street art. So everything is included in that center. It's very open. It's very welcoming. It's very international. But on the other side, it's also very challenging. It's very different to other centers, and it's very, for every person it is a bit different, right? Every person will go in and will go out as a different person. It's a great education place, but it's also a great place to have fun and to be amused and to spend a few hours.
이 방대한 자료들 속에서 저 사진을 보니까 백남준 선생의 젊은 시절의 열정이 자료 사진으로다가 지금 남아 있습니다. 학예 연구 실장으로서 우리 백남준 선생의 열정만큼 하고 싶은 일이 많을 것 같은데 어떤 일을 가장 크게 하고 싶으신지 한번 말씀해 주시죠.
The mission here is definitely to make it into a really exciting place, which is really welcoming to the people. But it's also to take Namjoon's legacy serious and look what he lived, his internationality, his participatory art, his multi-genre art, all that, and make it into a museum or make it into an art center and kind of live not the life he lived, but live the art he lived and include all the different kinds of art and very exciting ideas he had in his life into an art center.
백남준 선생의 많은 해프닝, 모든 게 하나하나가 거장으로서의 결과가 되기는 하겠지만은 일반 시청자들에게 가장 친근하게 다가왔던 것들이 비디오 아트거든요. 비디오 아트에 대한 간략한 소개를 좀 주시죠.
Yeah, video art is actually a genre like painting, sculpture, performance. And by now it became one of the most important genres in art history or in the contemporary art. While when Pike started, he was the first one who actually made a video as an artwork right after the first portable video camera came out in New York. He basically made the film and went to the studio or went to the gallery and showed it. Of the Pope, by the way. But video art is very open. On the one side, it can be just a film of somebody, but like Pike, he pioneered changing video. He pioneered actually changing the pictures in the art and in the television with this video synthesizer, which we have in the exhibition. So video art, which now became one of the biggest genres, which is very diverse and very different and has a lot of facets, was also started by Namjoon Paik in the 1960s.
백남준 아트센터의 이 많은 작품들, 우리 관람객들에게 있어서 어떤 자세로 어떻게 관람을 해야 되는지 학예연구실장으로서 좀 조언 좀 주시죠.
Pike always was very open with that. Pike was very pleased when small kids visited his art and watched his art, and he certainly was also very pleased when experts looked at it. And that's how we did that center. The center is very open. There is no guided tour or one way to visit it. It's like a house. There are different rooms, and it's your choice how you want to visit it and what you want to see first and see last. So it is a little bit guided, but it's very open, and that's how it should be, right? We don't want to give a one-way tour through art history. In opposite, we want to leave it to the viewer to have an experience and find its own way through the way and world of Namjoon Paik and contemporary art.
지금 이곳에서는 나우점프라는 타이틀로 백남준 페스티벌을 열고 있습니다. 이 백남준 페스티벌에 대한 설명을 좀 해주세요.
Yeah, the Namjoon Paik Festival is called Now Jump, and it's our kickstart for the Namjoon Paik Art Center. And we actually not only use the Namjoon Paik Art Center, but also the gymnasium and the private gallery just an opposite of us. And Now Jump is a big festival and has basically 3 stations. The first station, which we are standing at the moment, is a more historical station of Namjoon Paik, of his friends and his kind of connections in the 1950s, 1960s. The second station has to do a lot with performance. As you know, Namjoon was very important in performance art and so on. So we actually have live performance in the space. And we have a lot of, and a big program of theater and live performances, which you have to look up in our website. And the third station is more about contemporary art. And there we combine different ways of contemporary art. We combine street art and graffiti art and really visual art, music, even gardening into a big exhibition, which shows a lot of Korean and international performance art, and not only performance, but visual artists of today. But these three stations are also what we are going to do in the future, right? They are historic, they are contemporary, they are performance, they are music. So it's a really good way of kind of kickstart the Namjoon Pike Art Center. But it's also a festival like we'll never see again in this region, because it has so many facets and it's so interesting and it's so big. We have over 100 artists, we have huge installations, we have very important films, we have artworks of Pike, which you will never see again in Korea. So you have to see it to believe it, basically.
네, 많은 작품들이 호기심을 유발을 하는데 그 중에 선생님께서 그 작품하신 것들 중에서 최초 공개된 작품이 있다고 그래요. 궁금하거든요. 소개해 주실 수 있습니까?
There's a lot of new work, but I can show you the most exciting one and the biggest one. Come with me.
네네.
Yeah, let's have a look.
가시죠.
See that work here, which is very fascinating.
아하, 이건가요?
Elephant card. An elephant card we put in a very social, political environment, and because it is all about ruling and discipline, and these elephants are kind of used and not used, and it's about group, and it's about the time we are kind of putting it in. It's about 68, when everything was about revolution and again, discipline and anti-discipline. And so this work, we actually, it's in our collection. It's first shown for the first time here. And it's a very fascinating work, because we use, Pike for the first time used actually this footage, which looks like tourist footage, but he also looks at it very, very of the funny side, but also on the very critical side. So it is, again, both kind of facets of Namjoon Pike's work.
예, 그야말로 세계에 내놔도 부끄럽지 않은 아트센터인데요. 학예연구실장으로서 앞으로 하시고 싶은 계획 어떤 것이 있는가요?
We want to be that this art center is like Namjoon Pike. It should be international. We want to have a lot of international and Korean guests. And so here it should be multi-genre. We want to invite a lot of different musicians, artists, performance artists, and so on. It should be also very participatory. That means people should actually really participate. They should not only look, but they should do things. They should get involved. And it should be challenging. It should be critical and challenging, and always make people think and make people challenge them in what they think and how they think about Namjoon Pike and art. And in the end, we really wanted to be the most exciting art center in Korea, certainly.
네, 세계적인 거장 백남준 선생이 영원히 살아 숨쉬는 그러한 아트센터로서 관람객들하고 소통이 이루어질 수 있는 그러한 훌륭한 아트센터가 되기를 저도 기원하겠습니다. 오늘 장시간 이렇게 좋은 말씀 주신 우리 미스터 버거 선생님 감사합니다. 소원하시는 꿈이 이루어지셔서 정말 세계에 내놓아도 부끄럽지 않은 그런 아트센터 운영해 주시길 부탁드리겠습니다. 고맙습니다.
감사합니다.
고맙습니다. 네.
감사합니다.